It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions improved on their best start since 1934 with a 24-6 victory over the Indianapolis Colts last Sunday. The Lions are now a league-leading 10-1 on the season. Next up, the Thanksgiving traditional clash at 12:30 p.m. against division rivals, the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 4-7 on the season, but this is a huge rivalry game and a home divisional game for the Lions, who have not won on Thanksgiving since 2016. They'll look to end this streak this Thursday. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzezinski-Drew, and we are recording on a Tuesday, the 26th, because the Detroit Lions will be playing once again in the Thanksgiving game against the Chicago Bears, as we mentioned in the intro. And to join me to talk about that and so much more is Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Drew. Doing well. It's the short week for the Lions. We'll get into things. Things keep marching right along. 10-1, which I think without dragging out too much, I'm not very surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm not. I mean, I am pleasantly surprised. In the, I guess, is a way of a figure of speech, but in a way, I'm not surprised at all that we're here. This is exciting, my friend. It's exciting stuff. But a short week. We're a little dinged up. We've got some things to talk about, my friend. We got to talk about the roster that we're going to see here on Thursday, and then we don't get the 10-day turnaround. We are back to work 7 days later, Thursday night, once again, for another contest. So roster management is key these days, Drew. But happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
Yeah, same to you, Coach. Same to you. Looking forward to this every year, of course. And, thankfully there's no blackout rule, and Ford Field's a little smaller in the Silverdome, so we don't miss Thanksgiving games anymore. Even if we're not there, we get to watch them on TV. But, before we jump into the Thanksgiving game itself, let's talk about last Sunday's game a couple days ago against the Colts. Coach, 24-6. Again, Lions 10-1 now, best record since 34, their first year in Detroit. Pretty much the way we thought it would turn out. I mean, we didn't think it'd be a blowout, although an 18-point win's a solid win, no question, but not a blowout. But the Lions were in control the whole game, and they just kept cruising. But no turnovers by either team, which we kind of I thought they're going to get a couple, and I thought that would contribute. The fact that they didn't turn the ball over Indianapolis, that is, that made things more difficult, certainly. But talk about the performance as a whole, because even though it wasn't as spectacular as some of the recent ones we've seen, they're all W's. They're all W's, and this was another one. So what'd you think, Coach?
Well, there's a tale of two teams, and there's a tale of two. I guess there's a tale of two halves of the AFC South. There's the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts, and then there's the Titans and the Jags. And those two teams that I just mentioned in the latter half of that division are teams that are really behind the eight ball this year. And the Lions processed quick. They really have no business being on the field with the Detroit Lions. The Colts and the Texans are much more competitive. The Texans being a little bit better. I mean, that I think the pecking order in that league is exactly what it is. The Titans and Jags are where they're at. The Jags are probably a little better. I guess, if you had to go head to head, but maybe not either. But then you do definitely have probably the Colts behind the Texans in that division. I think it plays out just the way they are. Those teams are lined exactly the way they should be. The Colts play fine defense. They do a nice job. They made the Lions be very patient. The Lions were very successful once they got on offense. We did a fine job there, but this was a physical game. We got dinged. And the defense, once again, no touchdowns, Drew. No touchdowns. We get out of this game, a little worse for wear with injuries. It was a very physical game. The Colts are a physical football team, and we got dinged up a little bit. But again, it's a process win, Drew. It's a process win.
Yeah, no, good point. No touchdowns, like you said. It's just 10 straight quarters now. So we're talking 2 complete games and the second half of the Houston game. They have not allowed a touchdown on defense, or at all. So, damn. I mean, if I'm surprised by anything, coach, it's how good this defense is.
Since Hutchinson's injury.
That's incredible. I mean, you knew the secondary was going to be upgraded, but you didn't know how much. And my goodness, I mean, you were talking like you've said in earlier episodes. They not only have 2 Pro Bowl caliber safeties, they probably have the starting All-Pro safeties right now, in Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. I mean, those guys are outstanding. Terrion Arnold has gotten better every week. He started every game. Carlton Davis, what a pickup in trade. In the offseason, he's been outstanding. Amik Robertson, another signing in free agency, outstanding. And Rakestraw's been dinged up. He hasn't played a whole lot yet. There's still a lot of hope for him too. And now you get Emmanuel Mosley back. I don't know what they're going to get from him, but that's a veteran player that definitely has some moxie, and when healthy is pretty damn good. So I love how they play. I'm shocked at how good they've been on defense in terms of they've dramatically improved. They really have. I mean, they were always good against the run, but now they're very good against the pass. And I've heard other media pundits say not only were their offense is one of the best in the league, if not the best, and now their defense is playing that level. How do you handle the Lions? So I guess that's my question to you is, I mean, if you're an opponent, coach, we'll talk about how the Bears are going to do that, but just in general, how do you attack that offense? I mean, how do you even try to stop them?
It's a fully constructed football team. I mean, there's, we got from having been, done this a little bit and been very, very lucky to be on some coaching staffs with some really, really, really good football teams. That were, we were very good. I was very lucky to be on those staffs and those teams. And what you kind of have to be careful with is kind of, not really being satisfied or accepting the fact. In this case, it's you're 10-1. In this case, it's you're just pounding opponents. Yeah. In this case, it's you haven't given up a touchdown in 2.5 games. Whatever the case may be, you just have to keep what's out, keep processing with what's out in front of you, and doing what you do, and being patient at times, because sometimes it may be more difficult than others, and there may be more adverse circumstances. So you've mentioned some guys that we need to see step up. Carlton Davis, in my mind's eye, is the unsung hero of this defense. He has been fantastic. He has been, we have those 2 All-Pro safeties, and they're going to be All-Pros this year. But we have a rookie corner out there and another rookie corner that struggled on getting out there, and we have a couple of guys that are a bit kind of, roster seekers in Vildor and Dorsey. And then, we had the oft injured Emmanuel Mosley. Carlton Davis has been an anchor corner. Amik Roberts has been great in the slot. Mm-hmm. He's been great in the slot. When we move Branch full to safety, he's taken that role on. And he's had a couple of bites here and there, but he's also made his fair share of plays. He's been rock steady. As mentioned, Terrion Arnold's had to cut his teeth a little bit. It's not easy. He had to find out the hard way. He's a rookie starting here in corner. Signs are really, really looking right. This is not Jeff Okudah 2.0. No. This is a guy that is starting to show some signs of improvement. But up front, I want to really kind of three guys in particular, and then also Zadarius Smith and what he brought to the table a little bit on Sunday as well. But I have not been easy, just because I guess I'm understand how cutthroat competitive this is. Yeah. And I've been long concerned with the health and productivity of Josh Paschal, and he was outstanding against the Colts. He was a bona fide edge setter. in that run game, and he also in framing and keeping Anthony Richardson inside that defense, and not being able to do anything really that spectacular at all, other than look like John McEnroe out there, and sour faced.
Oh, every play
and cross and we this is and we're not going to sit here and rally against him, but he definitely, the Lions were in his head and he was defeated out there. Yeah. He was there was no way, shape, or form he was going to lead that team to a victory on Sunday, and his performance dictated that. And I would like to think the Detroit Lions did that themselves. Josh Paschal being a big part of that. Aleem McNeil, we're talking about another Pro Bowler, borderline all-pro type defensive tackle. And then he was extended for a reason, and he is a huge piece to that defense. If we want to start talking teams like the 2007 Patriots, the 1990 New York Giants, the 1985 Chicago Bears. You want to start talking teams like that that were so dominant and awesome, in those years, and look at their defenses, and it's starting to kind of feel that way. It's like almost it's starting to feel that the defense has just as much character and is just as dominant as our offense is. Yeah. And DJ Reader is a guy that that was talked about when he was signed, how great he was going to be. And sometimes he does get some statistics if things do cave into him. But he is the reason that we are locked down on that run. There is that backside is closing all the time. It's closing now, and he is the anchor of that. And the run is always in front of DJ Reader. You never seen him turned ever. So he is phenomenal there. And Zadarius Smith, the production's still not like Hutchinson production. But we saw that pocket collapsing a little bit more. We saw a few more errant passes be thrown for incompletions, which is a fantastic thing for a defense. And incompletions just as good as anything a defense can really do.
Yeah.
And yes, we were able to flush and hit home a little bit. When we really get a pocket presence quarterback, that's where I think Zadarius Smith's going to hit home a little bit more. The movers, they'll just scheme and always roll away and slide away from him. That'll make his pressures. He'll get hurries. He'll still pressure the quarterback, but you may not see him bearing down, so to speak. That was the case a little bit against the Colts, but he got real close, and I think he hit home once. So, or was maybe hit home a couple times, maybe not for sacks, but for knockdowns.
Yeah, he did. He got a couple.
Quarterback hurries. He was able to hit home on. So, the defensive performance was just sublime once again. In total, what the Colts really were able to do, Drew. 172 yards through the air, 96 on the ground, 268 yards of offense for the Colts. I mean,
it's pedestrian.
That's not
what you. That's what
the NFL game.
Hey, I mean,
the Lions had 645 yards the week before that. So just in comparison, hey, the Lions had to be a little bit more workmanlike, and we'll get to the offense, Drew. But you talked a little bit about the DBs. I kind of mentioned the front. And I didn't, and I'm not, and there's some other players too that are really contributing, well out there. But, talk about what you saw with the linebacking core, especially we got our first little taste of David Long Jr., didn't we? We talked about him last week. Talk about what you saw those linebackers in place of Alex Anzalone, and what you thought of David Long's debut with the Lions.
Well, yeah, at first I did notice Long immediately. He's very fast. And he is aggressive, just like you said. And I'd seen him, play before, but I hadn't watched him admittedly that close. He's explosive. He definitely is. He had about 25% of the snaps. So I'm glad he played. I mean, I didn't expect him to play, quite frankly. So he got some work in. That's great. Definitely expect to see him a lot more in a couple of days here.
He's going to start, I think.
But when you talk about the linebacker performance, I expected and got what I wanted from Jack Campbell. He led the team in tackles with 9. He was the quarterback out there on the defense. He is not out of place there. That being said, it'd be great to get Double-A back and maybe even Derek Barnes at the end of the year. My goodness. But then a game ball went to Malcolm Rodriguez. He had 8 tackles. That guy, I mean, you plug him in. He got plugged in after in the NFC Championship game last year, and he comes up with an interception. He just makes big plays. He's not a huge guy, but my God, his gap discipline is outstanding. He's like a fire hydrant out there. He's a great leverage tackler. That's the kind of guy you want on your team. He just helps you everywhere. I was impressed by both of them.
Absolutely. Malcolm Rodriguez may outlast a lot of linebackers that will get more reps than he will in games. In regards to the longer career in Detroit, just by what he brings to the table. He is able to be that depth linebacker and move across the front and play tons of special teams. And honestly, if we became short on an H-back, fullback type scenario, he can go to that side and do that as well. Guys like him, Nick Bellore, he's like in his 13th or 14th year in the NFL. He's still playing. So, I mean, they have such great versatility. Cameron Reeves-Maben, although we have not seen him play on the offensive side, supposedly he brings that versatility. Jason Kabinda, and I think Jason Kabinda's time in the league may come up. He became oft injured. But, Malcolm Rodriguez, Drew, is a guy I would almost hope if his body can hold up. He is not the biggest guy in the world. But if his body can hold up, he could be here 8-9 years in his role. And always in that role. He could outlast like a Campbell almost. In some ways.
Yeah.
The emergence of Jack Campbell is so good. And it's going to allow us to because, we really, Maben has been hurt. We do not have Derek Barnes. We no longer have James Houston as of today. The November the 26th.
Yes.
We were recording this on Tuesday the 26th. So no more James Houston with the Lions. He may clear waivers. He could get back on the Dove squad, but we'll see. But what I guess our point is David Long. That's showing us what we're going to get out of David Long, which is a lot of snaps. He's going to be out there a significant amount of time. We have Ben Niemann. Ben Niemann's a veteran presence and a guy that's very similar to a Malcolm Rodriguez. Very similar player to Rodrigo. And that's also supporting in that role. But when Anzalone comes back with Jack Campbell's emergence, our depth at linebacker, we can just keep bringing these big, tall, rangy, weak side kind of roving inside outside linebacker types. Yeah. Because really it's a 4-2. And if you ever wanted to like offset a guy and kind of have one be more like a wide 9 type, you could like make that inside corner look like a third linebacker, so to speak. And there's even ways you can roll it up and it could look like a 4-4 or 3-4 type of defense as well. All sorts of different ways you can shade and move and adjust your alignments. Those no matter what, it's not a middle linebacker. It's 2 inside backers.
Yeah.
So you can have a kind of that inside backer can also kind of be outside backer sized. You need a rangy player, but you got someone that's physical enough to play on the run. Jack Campbell he's looking more and more comfortable. He is the real deal, and just a much younger body than Alex Anzalone, who's really, the type of career, and I think Alex Anzalone's got the remainder of his contract left. Mm-hmm. He was extended too. So there's a couple of years left with Alex Anzalone, and he's going to wind up being here 5, 6, 7 years and have one heck of a career tacked on of his time with the Saints.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a great veteran football player in Alex Anzalone. He's one of those guys. He's probably not a Canton player, but an era-specific player, an era household name, and a veteran presence that Lions defense and somewhat embodies. I know he's kind of in some ways the face of it at times, all right alongside like Aiden Hutchinson and now Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph.
Yep. Yeah, you're spot on, Coach. And before we jump into the Thanksgiving, I want to talk a little bit more about this defense for the Lions in this Colts game. We got
to talk about the offense too, Drew.
We do, but I wanted to touch on something because I saw a play, and actually it might have been Brian Baldinger who highlighted it, but there was it was a red zone play where they were able to force Richardson to throw it away, and I think they had to settle for their second field goal. But Aaron Glenn actually dropped Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader back in pass coverage and zone blitzed with Branch and I think Robertson. I thought that was awesome. But Coach, I think that they've changed some personnel, obviously, but the way they play defense now is very different from last year and the year before. They are a aggressive man team that is stout against the run, and they're going to hold that pocket. They're going to collapse that pocket and hold it. They were not able to do that last year. They've been doing it this year. But Coach, talk about the philosophy you're seeing. Are you seeing the X's and O's, the changes, and how impactful is that? Am I overstating it?
No, I mean the secondary is so vastly improved, and that's even with some of our injuries. And we've had to rely on some of the names of the past, but we're playing much different in the secondary than we did last year. It is more aggressive, and I mean we've seen Terrion Arnold, and I'm glad people didn't get ultra hard on him. It is his rookie year, but I mean it's handsy. I mean they're physical. They're a physical secondary. They play physically. Carlton Davis has gotten gotten a few personal defensive holding PIs, pass interferences. So I mean, Brian Branch has been guilty of it, and he's gotten some personal fouls coming over the top on a few things. Amik Robertson, I believe, has been flagged a couple times. It's just that they play very aggressively, and that is it's been a tone setter. It's changed things. Because, really it did aid Aiden Hutchinson in some of his production. They kind of were married to one another. Aggressive coverage versus, with aggressive pass rush when pass rush sets, when pass shows. Kind of a match made in heaven, right? While that aggressive secondary plays allowed our now fairly pedestrian pass rush or par for the course pass rush, a little more time to still affect and be considered, a viable pass rush. Yeah. So, I mean, that the secondary has been key. That we play so well against the run with those backers in the front, with the D line and the defensive ends. As a whole, they've been magnificent. But that secondary, I think, is really been the calling card.
Yeah, it's incredible how what a difference it's made. I know I've said it a few times. I can't overstate it enough. I mean, it has been that much better. We'll talk about that offense now, Coach. Jared Goff was very solid in this football game. He's 26 of 36 for 269. No touchdowns, but no interceptions. 93.4 rating. I mean, the Colts had him under duress, and we talked about that in our preview. We said, look out, that front four of Indy is tough, and they got to him. It was Zaire Franklin, Cross, and EJ Speed got. It was Latu, Buckner, and Franklin all got a sack. So he was sacked 3 times. That's a damn good offensive line. So that front four was no joke by the Colts. And yet Gibbs was still able to get 90 yards rushing. Montgomery had 37, although he went down with a shoulder and probably could have came back in, but thankfully he didn't because I think he's going to be good to go on Thursday. But Jahmyr Gibbs did his thing. He got 2 touchdowns. The offense rolled through the run game, which rolls through that O-line. And, I mean, gosh, Coach, Taylor Decker went down, and thankfully he was able to come back in that game. He got rolled up on. Thankfully, he was kind of already down on his knee. So, I'd hate to think if he would have been still in a standing or upright position, what might have happened there. But thankfully, he's okay. But Yeah, I mean, talk about what you saw, Coach, because I just saw a very consistent, not spectacular, but a very consistent performance by that offense and as a whole.
Yeah, no, Jared Goff was great. I mean, we moved the football through the air.
Yeah.
We like you said, he was 26, 36, threw the football a fair amount of times, had 269 yards. We moved the football through the air. We signed our checks on the ground this past game and paid for it a little bit. I am a little, I'm more mindful of the wear and tear and the state of Taylor Decker. Long term, a little bit. I think of our five, he and Frank Ragnow and maybe Glasgow Wright, kind of even with Ragnow, are my guys that I'm mildly concerned about their physical state. And Taylor Decker is the oldest of our five offensive linemen.
Yeah.
He's endured the most. He has struggled with some injuries, always played through them. He has performed at his peak a top 10 left tackle in the NFL. And then we're talking Pro Football Focus rated.
Yeah.
Probably's lived 10 to 15, 10 to 16 in the upper half of the league for his career. So a fine player.
Oh, yeah.
A fine player that I am just worried, are we going to start to see those edges worn down on a little bit here? Because he's a fine player, but if he weathers, he could become a concern.
Yep.
And we have some look at on him. He's not played guard really, so I mean we're not talking about someone that we could do some movement maneuvering. And if Zeitler was not to come back, move him inside, and then we have to figure, on an offensive tag and move Sewell and do some retooling our offensive line that way. I don't know if that could ever be in the cards, but long term, it's time to start, being mindful of Taylor Decker, because some of these pressures are not just solely on him. And we saw Penny Sewell get burned. So I mean, we're not pointing fingers at Taylor Decker being an issue necessarily, because he's not. But yes, I mean, it's almost good to see Jared Goff perform the way he did with some pressure, because he's a guy that's going to have to hold that football and let it rip a little later sometimes. That's just going to be the nature of his game. And when he flushes, they were if I think they had something to do again, they'd probably be a little bit more urgent in rushing him, because they were able to flush Jared Goff and he was able to run for some first downs.
Yeah.
And or for at least 5, 6, 7 yards, which I mean,
not often.
He's not intending to do that. So kudos to him. He was real good. But Drew, I mean, we let's face it. I mean, we 137 yards on the ground. Gibbs had 90. Montgomery had 37, and like you said, he had come off the field a little bit, and I think they restricted him. And I was growing concerned because we're starting to put some serious miles on Jahmyr Gibbs. So we buttered our bread, with the ground and pound game still.
Yeah.
Hey, that's going to be our signature. In the receiving game, what did you like, Drew? And as far as receivers, what did you see? Amon-Ra once again shined, but what else did you see that you were really, really keen on?
So yeah, Amon-Ra was as advertised. I mean, he had 6 catches for 62 yards. J-Mo had 5 catches for 64, which was nice. You expect St. Brown to get anywhere from 6 to 10 catches. Yeah, and I mean, probably a little more production than that, but nonetheless, it was good. But the guy that stood out to me was Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick had a game. He had 4 catches for 55 yards, but they were very important catches, much like Josh Reynolds used to deliver last year. They were timely catches. I can remember the first half of the season, it was like every catch Reynolds made was either for a first down or a touchdown. I mean, Tim Patrick had a game, and he's a hell of a blocker downfield. I love this team, how bought in everybody is. There's not one diva on this team. There's not any guy on this team you look at and say, yeah, they're not really getting their hands dirty. They're not putting their head in it. No, every player on this team is bought in and committed. You can see it. The eye test tells you that. I don't care what level of football you're on. You can see nobody's afraid to do the dirty work on this team. It's how you win football games, how you win championships. You win a football game on skill, but you can't win a championship by that alone. You know that. But yeah, I was really impressed with the continued commitment to blocking downfield, and then the emergence of not the emergence, but really Tim Patrick stepped up when needed, because Khalif Raymond went down, and that's something I want to ask you about, Coach, because St. Brown went back and took punt returns after Khalif Raymond went down, and Coach Campbell was talking about he was joking. He's like, yeah, you know what, I made my mind up. He's going to be the guy. He almost got his head ripped off on one of those. I don't like that. I'm sorry. In the modern game right now, the way the NFL is playing, a punt return or a kick return is almost null and void. Almost. Punt returns, yeah, you got to have sure hands out there. But I'll be honest with you, I'd really rather see somebody else out there in St. Brown right now. What are your thoughts?
Great point, Drew. Great point. And that just goes to show you every role is so important. Khalif Raymond's role was vital on this team. You know, he was that fourth, fifth receiver. You know, that's just kind of where he is in the pecking order. And you know, and he contributes in that area. He makes plays. You know, he has a chunk, you know, of chunk plays every year, you know, through the air or in the reverse game or whatever the case may be. But a very versatile special teamer, came to us from Tennessee that way. You know, where and again, he's another glue guy. I know he's a weight room warrior. He's real popular among that part of the staff, and I know the team is, you know, he's impressive in that area, which you know commands a lot of respect. So I mean, you know, he's a big piece, and yeah, you're right. We don't need Amon-Ra getting more miles on him that way. So I mean, we're going to have to do some things. I don't know what the answer is going to be there. They seem to think that they have that answer. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, Isaiah Williams is now a Cincinnati Bengal. So I mean, we do not have his services. That would have likely felt like the guy. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure what they intend to do, if they're going to sign Donovan Peoples from the practice squad and have him do it, because he's certainly capable. You know, Allen Robinson at this stage, no, I don't think that would be something that he would do. JMO, no, we haven't been. We might as well go with Amon-Ra then, if that's going to be the case. And if we're going to do it, I mean, I wouldn't think this would be a long-term thing.
No,
there's just too much danger in putting Amon-Ra St. Brown back on punts for any length of time. But you know what? This is football. And, you know, football players play football. And then I know that sounds like a stupid, like, yeah, Captain Obvious statement. But, you know, hey, and I guess what I mean by that, though, is, you know what? Shut up with all that stuff. It's okay if he runs back punts. You know, there's a little bit of that, too. And, you know, if that especially means, and in this area of the roster, we may not have much of a choice. We might not really be able to do anything and make that roster move until after the Thanksgiving Day game. So we may have to get, you know, a game out of Amon-Ra, you know, doing it. Or, you know, I think, you know, I know Khalil Dorsey has been primarily a kick returner and helped us in that area. I don't know if he is, you know, versed in the punt return game too, because hopefully he has a little less mileage on him. He and Mr. Vildor don't quite get the snaps. They're going to get snaps. We're thinned out, but you know, we shall see. But yeah, the Khalil, you know, the Khalif Raymond, he is not going to play. He's hurt, and it's an injury that I feel it may be a multiple week injury. Why they're not disclosing, I'm not sure. I bet you there's probably a fracture in the foot or something like that.
He got hit hard. He came. No, I don't like. It's not like his foot got caught in the turf, but he got hit in the quads, both in the thighs, and he just went straight up. He was like parallel to the ground. He took a hard hit. Yeah, I don't know.
So I mean, that is a big one. That is a big one.
Yeah.
And he's definitely not going to play come Thursday. So, our offense was so impressive against Jacksonville. To think, you can't really come. It's like trying to follow the Beatles in the middle 60s, in a concert or something like that. Like, you're the next act after David Copperfield. Like kind of like hard. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I mean, they were great. So I mean, they weren't. It was going to be more bare bones, in a response like you would see in a typical NFL game, which is exactly what you saw. It's exactly what you saw against a team that's going to fight. I mean, they're going to be in the playoff hunt the last 3-4 weeks. The Indianapolis is going to be. I don't think they're going to get in, but they're going to flirt. They're going to be in the hunt.
If their offense could get it together, they'd be contending for a wild card spot. I believe their defense is pretty damn good. It really is,
and they do have some nice offensive line pieces. Quentin Nelson,
he got roughed up in that game, and he is a stud. Quentin Nelson is a captain on that team. He's an All-Pro. He's a top 5 pick. I believe he's a 5th pick overall for them. He's an outstanding guard. I mean, that's the kind of guy like that. That's like what's kind of guys the Lions got. I'll be honest with you. Quentin Nelson's that level. He got put on his back a couple of times. The Lions are no joke. I mean, it's a special team, like you said. And again, yeah, they didn't truck them. Well, they probably shouldn't have. The Colts are a pretty good team. They're just not. Their offense lacks a little bit, and we saw that. But their defense is for real. So. They're no massacre, but OW nonetheless. Coach, Thanksgiving, it's special. Once again, since 1934, ironically, they've been playing it that long, ever since they've been in Detroit. It's a beautiful thing. Bears in town. We've talked about this before, but I always like sharing a Thanksgiving memory of a game or something that you were able to experience as a youngster. Talk about one of your favorites.
Well, the first time I saw the Chicago Bears was in the year 1985. I got to see them in that vaunted game where Joe Ferguson just about left this earth.
Yeah.
And the 85 Bears and the 46 defense just came in and devoured us. It was something. I got to see the fridge. I mean, it was a dominant performance by the Bears. That's the first encounter I ever had with the Chicago Bears. And seeing them in their heyday, in their finest year of their franchise. And then a couple times, throughout, in the Silverdome before we, moved over into Ford Field, and many, many times at Ford Field, especially in the doldrums era, where the place would fill up with Chicago fans.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I didn't. There was a couple times I maybe didn't really enjoy it too much, just because there were assholes about, and they were purposeful, and kind of antagonistic, and we were losers. It just kind of felt that way, and it was just like, and and that's my mind's eye of the Chicago Bears. I guess of our divisional rivals, they are ahead of the Packers for me. I enjoy seeing the Chicago Bears lose to the Detroit Lions more than I think I like to see anything. I like to see the Lions beat the Packers. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a wonderful, wonderul thing. Enjoy it wholeheartedly, especially going into Lambeau and doing it. Minnesota the same way. But you know what? We've tasted a lot of victory against the Vikings, even though they've been to more Super Bowls than we have, and have been historically, at least the last 50 years more successful, we've tasted a lot of victory against the Vikings. The Bears seem to have caused us problems in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The Calvin Johnson catch. We've had years. The more Marty Mornhinweg. Deferring in the friggin' overtime. Some other games that got away from us there, or against this team. Hell, last year it took us a miraculous comeback to defeat them in Detroit. So
didn't go so well in Chicago either. So yeah.
So I do enjoy seeing the Lions beat the Bears. I am not a Chicago Bears fan, in the very least, or if that's not a team I'm going to root for ever. So it's fine time to come in here, but I also am a little concerned because we are on our heels a little bit physically. So again, it's a test of the roster depth and the roster solvency. Who can respond once again? I am not expecting Taylor Decker to play. I am not.
Okay.
I'm expecting that he will be out. You look at ankle and knee. Come on, let's get him healthy. Let's not put him through this gamut. Let's let him come back against on the following Thursday,
which is Green Bay,
which is going to be a game with Rashawn Gary and some other defensive concerns. Not that Chicago's weak and they're going to bring somebody too, but I think he's going to get Dan Skipper rolling in this one, and going that way. Carlton Davis, I'm once again thinking he may sit. We may have. We are playing so many games in the next 14 days. After that, 3 games within 14 days.
That's a lot.
So we got to be careful with that. Raymond, we know, is going to be out. Arnold is going to be back. And then we, know the whole cast and crew that are going to be out here. But Drew, we have to be prepared to play Chicago with a couple pieces not in there. If we had to do that, who has to play in order for the Detroit Lions to be successful? And who do you see not playing and us being able to move forward with?
Well, yeah, great questions. We know who's probably out. They can ill afford to have both Davis and Arnold out. So if Davis is out, Terry Arnold's got to play and it is what it is.
He's been a full participant at practice, so I think signs are pointing that he is definitely going to play,
and that's good.
That's Terry Arnold, that is.
And that's good because Kendall Vildor had a 29.3 Pro Football Focus ranking. And I don't even know the analytics behind those rankings, Coach. I know what the eye test told me. Yeah, the Colts didn't run roughshod over the Lions. They didn't even score a touchdown, Drew. What the hell is your problem? I don't have a problem. I just know that when the Colts were able to move the ball, 29 was victimized on every pass, nearly every pass. And it wasn't just one receiver. It was Pittman. It was Downs. It was Sonovich. Who was the other guy? Alec Pierce from the Cincinnati. They all were able to make plays against Vildor. Not against Davis and not against Robertson, but against Vildor. And even Jonathan Vilma, who I swore was trying to create drama all game long in the booth. Not that he's being anti-Lion, but I think he was just trying to create drama, which wasn't there. But he was saying they're picking on him, and it was obvious they were. You could see that. So one of those guys got to play. And then Brian Branch is obviously critical. It's just, and they're so deep at linebacker. You can say, well, they still got Campbell and Rodrigo. They have Anzalone, Barnes, and Jalen Reeves-Maben all out. So can't afford another injury on the second level at linebacker at all. Defensive line, we already know about that. Both starting ends are out. They pick up Zadarius Smith. Aleem McNeil is right now, and you mentioned it earlier, he's playing top of his game, so he's got to be effective. I think if they roll out there what they had against the Colts, they still have a very good chance at winning, and that's missing players. But I think I would agree. I think Davis probably does need to sit because he's gonna be needed next Thursday against Green Bay. Not that this game's not important. This is a very important game. This is a home divisional game. You got to win this game, and you really do. Now, if they lose it, are they in deep shit? No, they're not. But again, a divisional game at home, you got to win that. You look at the schedule. We look at the schedule every year before, and you say that's a game you got to win. It's a game you got to win. That's how they got to face it. I'm sure they are. They're not looking at this like, well, this is when we could. No, they want to win this football game. But I think on defense, they've got enough in. They've got so many injuries. They really can't afford any more. It's amazing how well they're playing with the amount of injuries they have, Coach. In my view, that's how I'm seeing it.
Well, the Vikes and the Pack are right on their heels.
Mm-hmm.
And, you lose the next two divisional opponents. One of them being Chicago, who is the one team that's sub 500 and struggling in the division. You now may very well likely now be in second place behind the Minnesota Vikings if they would win out, because we would have 3 losses to their 2. And really now the Packers are right on our heels. We're still in fine shape to make the playoffs. We're 10-3, but nonetheless, we not the turn of events we want to see happen, and we have some roster concerns. So it's a cautionary tale. You're as good as you are from week to week. That offensive line is the bread and butter of this team. It's the true factor. So we are going to be definitely going into this game. Like I said, it's not official. I just feel that Taylor Decker will be sitting in this one, knowing that the Green Bay game, if we were only to get him for one, that would be the one that you would want him to play in. It would be really nice to see Sam Laporta healthy and a contributing factor. Brock Wright's been great. I think poor Sam has not been 100% much of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we have to need to be mindful of and concerned of too. That's a long-term, type of an issue. Is he a guy that is just really only ever playing 75 to 90%? Is he ever, is he dinged a lot? Whatever the case may be, but it would be nice to see him and Ben Johnson find some creativity with him, and have him be that yin to yang once again with another receiver. Whether that's Amon-Ra, whether that's J-Mo, whether that's Tim Patrick, whether that's Brock Wright, or Jahmyr Gibbs. I definitely want to make sure we don't put so many miles on Jahmyr Gibbs. Hearing David Montgomery's good to go, but want to be able to see David Montgomery have a double-digit carry game like he typically does.
Mm-hmm.
The Jahmyr had 21 against Indianapolis, so we need to see that number probably come down a little bit, and get his touches maybe a little bit, diversified through the air as well, because I just don't think we want to put that kind of pounding on Jahmyr Gibbs, or we'll have worn down run game when it comes to the friggin' playoffs. And that's something that we have to be very careful of. So what does that mean? I think that means Craig Reynolds and Vaki, Sion Vaki is going to factor in the run game a little bit. I think you're going to see a third back get some legs in this game. And so as to not put so much pressure on Jared Goff and have a game plan that's pass heavy, a la the Rams and Buccaneers offensive game plans, which we saw how that all worked. We barely squeaked by with the Rams, and our one loss did come against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So my 2 cents with that, Drew. Defensively, we just keep finding a way to respond. We had the Pro Football Focus worst rated cornerback play substantive snaps.
He didn't miss a defensive snap. He played
every snap. He played every snap, and we didn't give up a touchdown. So I do feel, and that place is going to be crazy loud. Chicago has struggled on offense this year. They'll go through periods of time where they aren't doing anything. So, once again, there's a good chance that we will see that. And we're good chance we're going to see a little lightning in a bottle, too, because Caleb Williams can be electric, and they have some players out there. So to say that the Bears aren't going to make some plays, DeAndre Swift's coming back. He's fast. You've got guys like Rome Odunze and some threats. So, Drew, Chicago's offense, what do you see as the factor that's going to make them go, or the factor that's going to say no?
Well, they're balanced. And I think, to your point, they've been inconsistent. This team hasn't been blown out, nor have they blown anybody out, really. I mean, they've won the games they should win. They probably lost a couple. Last week, they lost in overtime to Minnesota 30-27 at home. Should have won that game. Minnesota's a very good team, but they're also living a charmed life. So it goes to show you that Chicago, they're a good team. I mean, hell, they rocked. I mean, they shook up Minnesota. That's an 8-2 football team, but they still lost. But DeAndre Swift, we know him. He's got 665 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. Am I afraid of DeAndre Swift as a Detroit Lion fan with this defense? I respect him, certainly. I'm not afraid of him. Now, I am concerned about that receiving core. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and you got Cole Kmet at tight end. You got Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's only got 33 catches for 368 yards. Now, he's been targeted almost 70 times, Coach. So
he's probably getting a longer tooth.
That, and you also got to question Caleb Williams' accuracy. Now, he's had a solid season, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but not tearing it up. I think he's at just about 2,300 yards passing. But again, the defense has yielded just as much. On paper, they're very much like the Colts. They've got a nice front four. Montez Sweat leading that charge there. He's got 4.5 sacks. Their linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, they're very good football players. They're among the leaders on their team in tackles. But offensively, their passing game is a concern. To have 3 receivers and a tight end of that caliber with the injuries the Lions have at corner, you mentioned. I think you mentioned earlier. We definitely talked about it off air. Emmanuel Mosley. He's healthy, he's dressed. Maybe he can contribute in this game. I don't know, but they're going to need all hands on deck for that team, for that receiving core. The key will be playing Caleb Williams like they played Kyler Murray, like they played most of the running quarterbacks this year. Bull rushing, but keeping that pocket contained. Make him beat you in the air. Don't let him beat you on his feet. He's got 333 yards rushing. Now they did a hell of a job against Anthony Richardson, who was an absolute load. They rarely were able to crack through to the second level on any, and that's with Jonathan Taylor only had 30-some yards rushing last week. So,
underused.
Yeah, and I think if the Lions are able to do this coming Thursday on Thanksgiving, what they did to the Colts, that's going to be the recipe right there. A quarterback with a very similar skill set, a little younger. He's the first overall pick this season. This is his rookie year, like you mentioned. He's gone through the ups and downs. Now we've seen Daniels in Washington, and we've seen even May in New England, and then Bo Nix, who I'm pleasantly surprised. He's playing very well. He's playing really well. Caleb Williams, though, is a concern. I mean, like I said, he's been pretty responsible with the football, not terribly accurate throwing, but I don't think he's a liability. He certainly hasn't been the impactful player that they had hoped he'd be this year. And they're certainly hoping that in a couple of seasons, they won't be thinking about they should have drafted Jaden Daniels. They don't want to be thinking that. As a Lions fan, I could care less. I hope they're thinking that. I hope that's what happens. But I'm just being realistic, though. They have a nice receiving core. They're going to have to be careful with that team coach. They got to be very disciplined on defense, but aggressive suit. Don't come to keep dancing with the girl you came to dance with, man. They have a recipe for success on defense right now. Don't screw around with it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, what we really need to do is, we got to keep them framed. There are times this year, and I think it was, with my group, where we maybe didn't do the greatest job of keeping our shoulders square and keeping things framed that we've done in the past in some of our past defensive efforts. And I think statistically it showed at times, through some chunking plays and some big plays and maybe some big plays through the air. And, we need to make sure that we are making quarterbacks throw on our terms. And we need to be able to do that with Caleb Williams. That he needs to be boxed and yet still pressured and rushed too.
Yeah.
So that, we're creating off schedule throws. And he's not, getting it to Moore when he wants to get it to Moore. He's not finding Odunze when he just broke a route. He's not able to get it underneath to Komet or vertically to Komet because he split some coverage, or he's poor throw that stops DeAndre behind the line of scrimmage, so it gives us a step to shut him down for a no gain instead of a 5 or 6, 7, 8 yard gain.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. And that's what I expect the Lions to do against Caleb Williams. Again, I don't think we're going to come home and hit home a bunch of times. If we were to do that, we'd be blitzing at first. And you know what? Hey, we may have to generate some through movement. We may have to generate some things through movement. We may have to. And the reason why I'm saying that is because hey, we just got done playing. I mean, we may have to be a little bit more of a change-up team and do things a little bit more that way in order to pressure and play with a little bit of a different energy and a little bit of a different mindset, because we are protecting some roster spots and some slots of guys that are not there. With Carlton Davis out, maybe our best response is to blitz a little bit and try to create some off-schedule throws. And then if we can get him back for Green Bay, which, Jordan Love came in our stadium last time and did us good last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a guy that's definitely got a salty taste in his mouth for the Detroit Lions, is Jordan Love.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he loves our stadium too. So, I mean, he performs well in it. So we may have to get creative with Caleb Williams and do some things that way. I'm almost expecting that we will. And he may hit on a couple of things.
Oh, sure.
And you know what? If we give up a touchdown, we give up a touchdown. We can't be so damn greedy. But hopefully we are able to ground and pound and continue to do our thing that way, Drew. What do you see this thing as a prediction, my friend?
Yeah, Coach. Again, a lot of the same that we saw last week. I don't think this is going. I'll be pleasantly surprised if this game gets away from the Bears. And quite frankly, it could. If they turn the ball over, if they're sloppy, they're in trouble. I harken back to the '97 Thanksgiving game in Pontiac when Barry Sanders just absolutely went off. I think the Lions won that game 50-23. Not predicting that this time. Although it wouldn't shock me if the Lions are opportunistic that they put up a 40-pointer, but I'm going to stick to a more conventional, conservative 27-13 score here, Coach. I think the Bears will find the end zone. Like you said, they're going to make some plays. I mean, my God, you can't shut everybody down all the time. I think the Lions will definitely take care of business and win this game 27-13. What do you think?
Great minds think alike, Drew. We are a point away from each other.
No kidding.
Yeah. And like you, I think they'll find the end zone one time. I think, and it'll be another processed game by this Detroit Lions defense. And they will really manage Caleb Williams quite well. They're going to manage that run game. They are going to find the end zone once, kick a couple field goals. They're going to get 13 points. The Lions are going to score 4 touchdowns. We're going to win 28-13.
Okay.
I do expect that we will maybe do one hocus pocus play and have a little fun that way. We'll get through the air a couple times, maybe one on the ground this time. Just probably taking it a little bit easier on the run game. We're going to live on the run. We're going to do our thing on the run. But, Jared Goff is going to, get the chance rolling a little bit in Ford Field. And that turducken is going to taste real fine. For our folks in Ford Field. It's actually in CBS, so they're going to be going with that 8-legged turkey.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, it's going to taste great. I can tell you that right now. I hope your Thanksgiving turns out great, Coach.
Same to you, Drew. Happy
Appreciate
Thanksgiving to you and yours, and I'm thankful and grateful for you, my friend. You make this thing go. It's a lot of fun.
Appreciate you. You're. This is your brainchild. This is yours. So you're. This is got your thumb for an honor, brother. So thank you. Thanks everybody for watching and for subscribing. Don't forget to check us out every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Roku channel. Also subscribe to our Facebook and Twitter X pages to follow us there as well. Thank you again for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.